The game has literally changed in Yu-Gi-Oh! And oh boy, it's fun, that's for sure. Probably seen it elsewhere by now, but the end of match procedures in Yu-Gi-Oh! Have changed to the point where now, rather than it being 5 turns after time back and forth, you have to go just until the end of that phase, and the game is over. This is fucking ridiculous. I'm going to try to spend the least amount of time actually just going over the rules as everybody's familiar with them by now, and kind of giving my opinions about it, which, short version, they fucking suck. I'm going to spend the least amount of time I can on this so we can get to the bulk of the video, which is talking about how to abuse these new time rules. And oh boy, there's a lot of ways. Keeping these 3 rules in mind, please follow these instructions when proceeding to the end of match procedures. Continue with the current phase of the game. Once the phase is over, stop the game. Determine a game winner at this point. The duelist with the most life points wins. Fuck. I think this is just a really poor decision from Konami. This mainly benefits the TOs of the tournament to get everybody out quicker. I recognize that you're going to probably be shaving 4 hours off your regular event time with this new rule in mind here. But that's fucking great and everything. That's incredible that we're able to get out a decent time for these regionals that normally would last until like midnight or later when they just have no business of actually doing so. Shaving off unnecessary time from an event is great and improves the experience for everybody as a whole, not just like the players that want to play 50 fucking minutes at a time. That's great, but I think this was a little bit ham-fisted of a way to deal with it. Since the game ends with the phase, not the entire turn, just the phase, you're going to be running into some major problems with that, as there's going to be very easy ways to abuse that to just win a game off of something you have no business of winning with. Looking at it both ways, I think it would be fair to extend it until the end of the turn, but even that is not fair when the player, say for instance, is you, that's the last player, you're getting that last turn, you're getting the only turn. So if you can put even in chip damage, you don't have to worry about setting up a board to deal with anything on your opponent's turn, because as long as you can put enough damage in, the risk reward for actually putting up something is negligent at that point. I think having it just one-sided like that is extremely dangerous, but I mean, it's great that these tournaments aren't going to be going 3 hours additional into what is already like a 9-hour tournament or something like that. So that's great, but we're not going to really be focused on this. Let's bring it over to the other camera. Let's talk about how you as a player can abuse the hell out of this. Let's go.
Whoopie-dee scoop, scoop-dee-dee whoop, whoop-dee-scoop-dee poop.
What's up, my Nimrod? It's Gage coming back at you guys again with another dose of that fresh, never frozen Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. I am elated that you guys will spend just a couple minutes with me here today. Talk about a children's card game we both mutually enjoy so fucking much. So with the new end of match procedures, a lot of people are going to complain about them, and realistically we can bitch and moan as much as we want about these new end of match procedures, but they're not going to fucking change. So rather than wasting time about complaining and ranting about them, I'm going to take this time and opportunity to tell you guys some ways that you can abuse it and make yourself a better Yu-Gi-Oh! Player when moving into time limit, which time limit actually kind of doesn't even exist anymore because it's just the one phase. So the one phase, what does that one phase mean? The one phase that you're going to be getting in time limit is normally going to be the main phase 1. That is normally the bulk of your turns anyways. It's all done in the main phase 1. So let's say, for instance, the most common scenario that's going to happen is you hurry up and finish your game 2. A lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players despise getting draws, as they're pretty much just as bad as getting a loss in most players' eyes. So their players are normally going to, if you're nearing the end of a game 2 and you're about to run into time limit, players will normally just want to hurry up and get to that game 3 before the clock goes off so you can get those 5 additional turns in time. Players' behaviors are definitely going to change as we start to get closer to the clock, because now I don't think players will want to actually give their opponent the opportunity to go first in that game 3. So maybe just taking the draw is better than just taking a straight up loss. But let's say everything is 100% fair. You finished a game, you have maybe a minute left, and you're siding for your game 3. You're going first. How do you take advantage of going into the main phase 1 and winning the duel? It's very important to note some things that you're entitled to as a player. One of the things that I think might try to come up often that you can easily protect yourself against is if you go into game 3 and then you declare draw and standby phase, something your opponent might want to do is say, "I am thinking," while they are in your standby phase, which this is actually, I don't want to say legal. There's not a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh right now that I think can interact with the draw phase and the standby phase. A card like Max C could interact with their standby phase. Your opponent could actually realistically think, hey, do I want to drop Max C during the standby phase? So they have a realistic ground to stand on when the judge eventually gets called in this scenario. Let's say 2 seconds are left in time. You declare draw phase, standby phase. Your opponent says, wait, clock goes off. What happens? You obviously just wanted to get to your fucking main phase so you could lay the hands on them. But now you're stuck in a judge call because you don't know if you can continue to your main phase one because your opponent had to think about something. But I think realistically, there's not a lot of things your opponent can do in that short span. So you could probably call a judge and get away with it because there's not really anything they had to think about. Artificially thinking about plays that do not exist or cannot exist is actually just the very book definition of slow playing, so you can probably get on your opponent's back for slow playing like that. But when you decide to move to your main phase one, which we're talking about now, it's pretty much guaranteed if you can argue that judge call correctly. What do you do from there? The main goal of the game moving forward, the most abusable thing about this new rule set is that you just want to deal enough damage. And enough damage is any more than 50. If you can deal any form of life point damage to your opponent, you will most likely 100% win the duel because that's all you need to do. So what are some cards that take advantage of this? Well, a lot of players are obviously memeing it up. You can play cards like fucking Sparks if you're feeling that way, or Poison of the Old Man or some shit. But those aren't realistic options. Sure, you can draw them, but you probably didn't get enough time to side them going into game 3, much less if you're going to be just focusing on your main phase 1 during your turn. I think the cards that are going to benefit you the most as a player are the ones that you can throw in your extra deck, because these are the ones that are going to affect your draw ratios, aren't going to affect exactly what you're going to be doing in time. There are 2 cards that come to my mind that I think are going to be making extra decks universally just because they can win matches in time rather cheaply. And those 2 cards are, well, the first one is Gagaga Cowboy. Gagaga Cowboy is a rank 4 monster that you can stick in defense position and deal 800 damage to your opponent. This 800 damage wins you the duel. Don't have to do anything else. Gagaga Cowboy saw some short play back in the day because that 800 damage could actually be relevant in time limit disputes. When you had your 5 turns of time, maybe that extra damage was just enough to win the match. But now it's a lot more relevant. If you're able to play a deck that can sufficiently make rank 4s, Cowboy's a really easy card to make to be able to just deal 800, win you the match, not have to worry about it. This has caused the ultimate rare version of Gagaga Cowboy to raise from like $20 to now $40 overnight. So, yeah, everybody else knows about this. The second card that really comes to mind, and it's not more of a card, it's more of an archetype, is Trickstar, which is the burn deck of the century right now. This deck is going to get a huge indirect boost from these new support cards. They're going to get a hell of a lot more annoying than they already are. The whole archetype revolves around dealing small amounts of burn damage, so I don't know, if you're able to do what the deck actually fucking does, you can probably just steal games like that. I think it's very important to note that I think these changes will affect how players behave as the clock starts to tick down. The clock affects how Yu-Gi-Oh is played. That's indisputable. Like I said before, now players don't want to go into time just because it kind of dilutes the gameplay, makes it a lot less fair, as there's another factor that can win the game, and that's just winning by life points. It doesn't matter which board you can set up, whether it's protected against anything or not. If you're able to get damage enough in there, you can win duels. Now it's even worse, and it doesn't even rely on the fact if you can just protect yourself for 5 turns. So to avoid this diluted gameplay, players will often rush into game 3 to allow themselves enough time to at least make some plays or something like that, rather than just going into time limit and letting that decide everything. Again, that's just not the way Yu-Gi-Oh was meant to be played. I don't think anybody enjoys that. And now it's like extremely weird though, because I think what everything's going to affect it, like if you know what you're playing against and if you know what you're going to do, if you're going to go first or second, you can easily probably just take the draw because it's going to be way better than losing the duel. For example, put yourself in this scenario here, because this is one that I see being problematic. You're playing against Trickstar. You're about to go into a game 3. Let's say you're taking the game 2. In most scenarios, you just want to lay the hands on your opponent as quick as you can so you can get into that game 3 and at least get those 5 turns in time. You're going to be at a disadvantage playing against Trickstar because they're going to be able to do burn damage, but you're feeling confident in yourself that in those 5 turns, you can just wipe the board with your opponent. Something that, of course, 5 turns in Yu-Gi-Oh! In this day and age, it's not outlandish that you can actually game your opponent at that point. But now you have to move into the scenario that if you even give your opponent a phase to deal any damage, you're going to lose the game. So what happens is you go into your side deck and you just say you're thinking a very long time about what you want to side. Realistically, you're going to let that clock run out because you know if you give your opponent the opportunity to go first and enter their main phase 1, you're losing that duel. There's no way out of it. That truly is just a damn shame that you kind of just have to take that L. You can't even give yourself the opportunity to win that duel in time limit. It doesn't exist anymore. I think that's definitely a very dangerous thing to look at. I think it's super scary and it's super sad at the same time because I don't think anybody enjoys these new rule changes. We can bitch and moan as much as we want about these rule changes, but it doesn't change the fact that they're coming. And to make yourself a better player, you got to learn how to play with them and adjust your gameplay to abuse it. If you're not playing a card like Gaga Cowboy in your extra deck, you probably should. That's something that can easily steal you some games, and I definitely would look into picking up a copy. Also, know what you're capable of as a player. Don't let anybody cheat you out of scenarios that they really shouldn't be. And also know when to throw in the towel and when's not the time to argue something. You're going to lose to some fucking cheese with these new rules, but hey, that's just something that's going to happen. That's something you're going to have to get used to. Sorry. I don't think anybody really likes these new rules, but let me know what you guys think of the new rules down in the comments section below. If you guys liked the video, be sure to like the video, thumbs up the video, and especially if you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, please do consider subscribing to my channel. Makes me feel really good. I appreciate the heck out of it, and hey, I appreciate the heck out of you. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, definitely subscribe. I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Nim signing out.